His only son is shot and killed right before his eyes as he watches in terror, and the crime lord decides to drop everything and avenge the young man, and even makes a deal with the enemy. He asks his trusted crew to find him answers and unleashes them onto the city, leading him on a wild goose chase filled with questionable information until he decides to give up and lay low, but just for a while. Today we will be recapping the 2021 movie Wrath of Man. The movie begins in Los Angeles. 2 guards and a bystander are shot dead in an armed robbery of one of Fortico Security's armored trucks, where the thieves manage to empty all the contents of the truck and flee. A few months later, a man named Patrick Hill applies for a job at Fortico Security, and his references impress the manager Terry, who passes him on to his soon-to-be immediate supervisor, Bullet, so that he can test his physical fitness and firearm training to check his field competency. Bullet nicknames Patrick H and is impressed by his physical fitness, but just barely passes him in the firearm training test, suggesting that he should do more target practice and sharpen up his rusty shooting skills. H starts his new job and meets his colleagues, Dave Boy Sweat, Stewart, and Dana Curtis. For the next few days, Bullet shows H around the facility and orients him to the ins and outs of the job, before partnering him with Boy Sweat for the first trip to the bank to transport millions of dollars safely. Due to his reserved and calm personality, H has a hard time mixing with the already tightly knit group of colleagues, who spend most of their time teasing and having fun with one another, as a way of coping with the stress of the job. A few days later, Boy Sweat drives the armored truck, with H as his messenger and Bullet guarding the money in the back. At the drop site, Bullet goes to deliver $10,000 but is not heard from for several minutes afterward. Boy Sweat freaks out, and as he wonders what's going on, a group of robbers who have kidnapped Bullet take his radio and order H and Boy Sweat to follow their orders and drive to an isolated road. The terrified Boy Sweat proposes they should follow the protocol and drive away, leaving Bullet behind, as it's too dangerous to risk the millions of dollars still in the truck that needs protecting. H, however, calmly declares that they are not leaving a man behind and orders Boy Sweat to cooperate with the robbers and leave the rest to him. Hence, Boy Sweat follows the robbers' car to an isolated road, where the robbers force Bullet out of their car, threatening his life, and ordering Boy Sweat and H to load the money in one of their cars. H calmly complies and after a few moments, uses the robbers' lapse of focus to single-handedly shoot at and take all of the robbers out. He then chases the last robber as he runs away, pins him down, asks him who he works for, and kills him when he fails to answer. Before heading back to Fortico, H goes around the scene, checking the faces of the deceased's robbers, to the confusion of his colleagues. At Fortico, H, along with Bullet and Boy Sweat, are questioned by the FBI about the incident. Then the agents single H out to ask him how he managed to expertly take out the whole robbery crew in single shots each, when he barely managed to pass his arm training test. The agents then show H a surveillance video of the previous robbery on the Fortico truck a few months back and ask him if he sees anything similar with the robbery crew he took out. However, H is shocked to see a person he recognizes, but replies negatively to the agents. Then Fortico's owner, Blake Halls, congratulates H for his heroic actions and gives him the day off while the FBI agents call their boss, Agent King, to inform him of their suspicions about H, hoping for a directive, but are confused when Agent King tells them to lay off H and turn a blind eye. Later that night, a woman brings H Dana's personal and family files along with an autopsy report. The next day, H is given a hero's welcome as he goes to work by his colleagues, who respect and appreciate his courage. 3 months later, as Bullet and H make a delivery, armed men ambush them, gas their truck, and force them to get out at gunpoint. Bullet reports the incident on his radio as soon as possible, before jumping out of the car while H calmly steps out of the back of the truck. As soon as the robbers see H's face, they are visibly shaken, abruptly drop everything, run back to their car, and flee the area. Later, after reading the incident report, Terry becomes increasingly confused about his new employee and tries to figure out why the robbers turned away, while Blake continues to hail H. Later that night, Bullet meets Boy Sweat at a bar and confides in him the effect H had on the mysterious robbers, which makes them both even more confused. Later, H spends the night with Dana at her apartment, wakes her up in the wee hours to question her about the bundle of money he finds in her living room, and after hearing that she stole it on the job, warns her family's life if she ever lies to him. 5 months earlier, on the day of the first robbery, as Hill spends time with his only son, Dougie, he is tasked by his partners to track down an armored truck and so takes Dougie along for the mission. Hill leaves Dougie behind in the car and goes out to check out the truck's movements. All of a sudden, Another robbery crew intercepts the same armored truck and opens fire. At the sound of the shots, Hill starts making his way back to his car to check what's going on and is utterly terrified to watch one of the robbers drag Dougie, who is an innocent bystander, out of the car and looks H in the eyes as he fatally shoots his son. The man then shoots H but only manages to injure him. 3 weeks later, H is discharged from the hospital after enduring several life-saving surgeries. He then goes to meet Agent King, who shows his gratitude for H by giving him a list of suspects. Shockingly, H is then revealed to be the notorious crime lord Mason Hargreaves, and together with his men, Mike, Brendan, and Moggy, who happen to be the same men that botched the robbery and ran when they saw him, starts looking for the robbery crew and the man who killed his son. Mason's crew start ripping through the city, causing mayhem, torturing and killing as many people as possible, hoping to bring answers back to their boss, until Mason finally sees the futility of it all, decides to leave everything behind and head back to London. Mason spends some time in London where, with the help of his assistant, builds a new persona for himself as Patrick Hill, an ex-cop with 11 years of experience in a security company in Europe, and discreetly returns to Los Angeles, hoping to infiltrate security companies from inside and find out the people responsible for Dougie's death. A few months before the first robbery, a group of veteran soldiers, Carlos, Sam, Brad, Tom, Jan, and their former sergeant Mike Jackson, hang around talking about how much their life has taken a downhill turn since they came back from Afghanistan and share their concern about their financial problems. Then, as they keep discussing their wish to become financially secure, a plan starts to form and the group decides to become robbers. A few days later, the group is disappointed to learn that their first robbery has only resulted in $100,000, and they start looking into armored truck robberies for a bigger payday. On their next mission, the soldiers, with the help of an inside man, successfully hit an armored truck and get a bigger prize. After a few days, Sergeant Jackson, with the help of his inside man, prepares his men to hit an armored truck and trains them for the next 6 weeks so that they can pull it off successfully. On the day of the first robbery, Sergeant Jackson and his men take their places as practiced and proceed to hit the same armored truck Mason was tracking. At the end of the robbery, Jan impulsively and needlessly kills both the guards and Dougie and shoots at Mason. Due to the unexpected fatalities and complications of their last robbery, the soldiers lay low for the next 5 months. Then, believing the heat has died down, they meet at the request of Sergeant Mike, who proposes to hit the Fortico depot on Black Friday for an estimated $150 million so that they and their kids won't ever have to work again. On Black Friday at Fortico, managers and supervisors warn their guards to be extra careful while driving the truck, as it's their busiest day of the year, and around $200 million is expected to be delivered to the depot that day. Elsewhere, Sergeant Mike gets the ball rolling as he gives orders to his men to prepare and set off on their mission, and goes to pick up John at his apartment, where he scolds him about his suspiciously expensive way of living, warning that he is a liability. At the Fortico depot, all the trucks manage to successfully return with their allocated money except for Bullet and H's, and the money is collected and put in the safe. Elsewhere, as Bullet and H start their way back to the depot, after collecting money, Bullet confesses to H that he's been working as an inside man and supporting his military friends to rob armored trucks by telling them which trucks to rob and sometimes helping with access to them. Unwitting that he's talking about H's beloved son, Bullet goes on to detail that it was his friends who pulled off the first robbery and killed the young man along with the guards, which shocks and upstates the grieving father. Bullet then details his and his friends' plan to rob the depot later that day and begs H not to be a hero and comply with whatever the soldiers tell him to do so that he can walk away with his life. H stoically agrees, and moments later, Sergeant Mike's crew start on their way, meet Bullet's truck, hide inside it, and drive with Bullet and H to the depot. There, the soldiers wait patiently and quietly until everything is quiet, and as everyone goes about their business securing the cash inside, they jump out of the truck holding both H and Bullet as hostages and start shouting orders at gunpoint. All the Fortico staff complies except for Dana and Stewart, who accidentally miss the exchange, sitting at the back of one of the trucks. Then the soldiers start shooting at the staff and force them to open the control room, triggering the alarm system, which blares non-stop and alerts the local police and SWAT team. Inside the depot, mayhem ensues as the soldiers go around terrorizing and shooting at the staff. H takes his time and waits until one of the soldiers is distracted, knocks him off balance, and as Terry and Boy Sweat watch in horror, chokes him to death with his hands still tied. Then, H frees himself, takes the dead soldier's helmet and long gun to look like one of them, and with the help of Dana and Stewart, who shoot from behind the trucks, goes around taking the criminals out one by one, until they gravely injured Sergeant Jan and Bullet are left. Bullet then shows his true identity, picks up a gun, starts shooting intensely, and injures H. Then Bullet, Jan, and the sergeant load all the money on one of the armored cars and flee to follow their preset plan. The trio drive to an underground parking area, which has hidden passageways with many underground tunnels, and Bullet and Jan load the money on pre-arranged motorbikes, while the sergeant stays back in the truck until Jan returns and kills him. Bullet and Jan then continue traveling on their motorbike through the tunnel, at the end of which a pre-arranged car waits for them. The duo loads the money into the car, right after which Jan kills Bullet, hops in the car, and flees the area. The next day, H tracks down Jan through the tracker he puts in the money bag and goes to his house and surprises him. There, H gives Jan Doogie's autopsy report, which states that the young man had been shot in his liver, lungs, spleen, and heart, tells him his son's name, and kills him by shooting him in the same parts of his body. Then, as H makes his way out of the apartment building, he runs into Agent King and tells him that his task is done, before driving away. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.